A woman who's had so much and is now 40, nearly 44, actually keeps on going back to when I was 11, when I was 11, when I was 11, as if this is the most important part of her life. What nonsense is that?
She's told it like gospel. At the United Nations, on Oprah's couch, in royal speeches, pregnancy interviews, and podcast press tours. Meghan Markle's 11-year-old soap letter story isn't just a memory. It's a performance, a set piece, a one-woman TED Talk rehearsed to perfection, recycled on cue. You've heard this story before, but this time, something shifts. South by Southwest, Austin, Texas, a panel of powerful women. Meghan takes the mic and gears up for her favorite act, the when I was 11 moment. The breathy pause, the dramatic setup, the same dish soap commercial she's weaponized a dozen times before. And then, mid-monologue, it happens.
Hollywood legend Brooke Shields has spoken out about her horrendous encounter on stage with Meghan Markle at the South by Southwest festival, and it's clear that the two divas didn't get on at all.
Brooke Shields leans in and slices through the silence. When I was 11, I was playing a prostitute. The room freezes, then erupts. And just like that, Meghan's go-to story finally hit a wall it couldn't climb.
The myth is simple. A young Meghan, age 11, watches a sexist dish soap ad on TV. Outraged, she writes to Procter & Gamble. Somehow, her letter triggers a corporate rewrite and the start of her activist journey. It's her favorite fairy tale. A little girl changes the world with a pen and some courage. It's clean, it's inspiring, and it's just vague enough to dodge scrutiny, most of the time. She's used it everywhere. At the UN, during her royal pregnancy, on her Netflix docuseries, on her Archetypes podcast, at King's College, even with Oprah.
Shields, a total legend, and she makes it so clear that she just couldn't put up with Meghan's nonsense. Now, Angela, I'm sure a lot of A-listers have felt this in the past, but don't you find it fascinating that Brooke Shields is going on the record, is prepared to now say...
Each version, slightly reshaped, slightly retimed, always perfectly convenient. It wasn't just a story, it was a shield. A tool to reset her image, soften controversy, and reposition herself as the victim turned hero. But when you use the same anecdote every time the press turns cold, eventually, people notice. And worse, people stop caring. The South by Southwest panel was meant to be another polished PR moment. Meghan, flanked by elite women, glowing under soft lighting, ready to deliver another round of curated vulnerability. She eases into the rhythm. When I was 11, cue the somber voice, the pause, the anticipated applause. But this time something's off. The room doesn't lean in, it braces. And that's when Brooke Shields calmly leans forward and says, "Excuse me, I have to interrupt you there for 1 second." Then the bombshell. When I was 11, I was playing a prostitute. The crowd explodes. Meghan freezes. Her story, so carefully timed, so frequently recycled.
It happened a year ago. She could have done it then, but obviously she's sort of burst open now to say what she wanted to say for the whole year. And actually to be honest about it, tell her, will you shut up? You're talking a load of rubbish. I think that it's good of her.
Is suddenly irrelevant. Because Brooke didn't just hijack the moment. She ended it. Brooke's line wasn't just funny, it was devastatingly real. At 11, Brooke Shields wasn't writing polite letters. She was navigating global outrage as the lead in Pretty Baby, a film that sparked moral panic over child exploitation. She wasn't claiming to be an activist. She was enduring public scrutiny that no child should ever face. So when Meghan rolled out her trusty bedtime tale once again, it landed like a bumper sticker. Brooke's interruption, it landed like a punch to the gut. This wasn't mockery, it was contrast. Curated outrage versus real-life controversy. Marketing versus memory. Performance versus truth. Meghan paused like a performer. Brooke didn't. She just said it.
In one sentence, Brooke offered a reality check so casually brutal that it cracked Meghan's story wide open. On the surface, Meghan stayed composed. She smiled. Tight. Delayed. The kind of PR smile you flash when you've just been verbally clotheslined and have to pretend it was a hug.
Listening to her for 45 minutes, she said, too boring for words. She just said how awful it is that she's talking about when she was 11.
But backstage, insiders say the temperature dropped. Fast. Rumors swirled that Meghan was livid, that she had asked to pre-approve the panel footage before its release. Her team denied it, of course, but the rumor spread like wildfire. And then came the silence. No follow-up Instagram, no snappy tweet, no thank you for having me posts. Just silence. Radio silence. From a woman who usually floods the feed within hours. In media strategy, silence often means one thing: panic. If Meghan's team was trying to control the narrative, they were too late. By the end of the day, Brooke's interruption was everywhere. TikTok spliced the moment into reaction videos. Twitter lit up with memes captioned, "Brooke said plot twist." Someone even stitched together a supercut of every time Meghan told the soap story. It ran like a sitcom intro. The Adventures of 11-Year-Old Meghan, Season 7. And the public? They weren't just laughing, they were sighing. Relief, fatigue, vindication. She didn't just lose control of the story. She lost the audience. What once sparked applause now drew eye rolls. Not because the story was offensive, but because it was tired. Meghan's story has been shaky for years.
Celebrities have not been prepared to express about Meghan Markle before, but Meghan Markle's going to be fuming about this one.
Back in 2017, Vanity Fair reportedly cut the soap letter anecdote from her cover feature after fact-checkers raised concerns. Then her own father stepped in. Thomas Markle claimed the story had been wildly exaggerated, that the company never replied to Meghan's letter, that he, not Meghan, had arranged the Nickelodeon interview that supposedly followed. The fairy tale, he said, was built on spin. That's not activism, that's branding. And when the foundation starts cracking, the brand doesn't just wobble, it starts to collapse. People started asking uncomfortable questions. If the facts don't line up here, what else has been polished? How many other moments were curated, repackaged, resold? Behind the scenes, damage control meetings reportedly took place. Phone calls, messaging plans, a lot of, how do we spin this? But the timing was already lost. Brooke, meanwhile, didn't flinch. She went on India Hicks' podcast and told the story again. Calm, confident, candid. I just felt like the room needed some lightness, she said. It was getting so self-serious. She didn't drag Meghan. She didn't gloat. She just told the truth. Gracefully. And that contrast only deepened the divide.
So she told her off, shut up. Who cares what you're doing when you're 11? I was doing much more interesting things when I was 11 and, so shut up. This is supposed to be fun. They're supposed to enjoy it. Who the hell do you think you are? It's a big one, isn't it?
Meghan's curated silence felt brittle. Brooke's honesty felt like oxygen. India Hicks called Brooke's moment genius. She wasn't alone. People didn't just applaud the interruption. They embraced it. Brooke became the unexpected hero of the day. Not because she tried to be, but because she dared to be honest in a room full of performance. Brooke didn't steal the spotlight. She reset it, and the public took notice. No dramatic speech, no buzzwords, just one unscripted moment that made Meghan's entire persona feel suddenly artificial. Here's the thing. Meghan's brand has always been about relatability, vulnerability, activism with a glossy finish. But even relatability has a shelf life. Because when every anecdote feels like strategy, when every pause feels planned, when every tearful moment lands with the exact same cadence, people disconnect. The When I Was 11 story didn't flop because it was false. It flopped because it was tired, overplayed, weaponized at convenient times to soften a headline or reset a narrative.
Brooke didn't just interrupt a story, she shattered the pattern. And now that people see it, they can't unsee it. Meghan Markle is still famous, still powerful, still polarizing. But she's no longer untouchable.
The possibility that that interaction could have taken place on stage, and if Ms. Meghan was the sort of kind, lovely, gentle, funny person that she makes herself out to be, well, her reaction to Brooke Shields after that moment would surely have been, oh no, it was brilliant.
This wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a smear campaign. It wasn't a coordinated takedown. It was a moment of relief. One woman, respected, seasoned, fearless, finally said what the public had been thinking. Enough with the speeches. Enough with the performance. Enough with the dish soap. Brooke Shields didn't take Meghan down. She just reminded everyone what honesty sounds like, what experience looks like, what authenticity feels like when it isn't wrapped in a PR filter. And in a world drowning in perfectly staged stories, sometimes the quietest truth lands the hardest. So, will Meghan speak again? Of course. But the real question is, will anyone still be listening? Because in today's fame economy, the worst sound a brand can hear is silence.